of teaching and research off campus and changing the format or modality of teaching and learning research through engagement and partnering with external communities. It's just teaching in a different way, researching in a different way, and involving students in those activities and involving the community in those activities. A term that captures scholarship in the areas of professional, this is our interpretation of professional discipline-based service provision, teaching, learning, and research. Now, if we want it to be scholarly, it must be underpinned by clear goals, adequate preparation, appropriate methods, significant results, effective presentation, and reflective critique, rigor, and peer review. And you'll find that if you don't have those particular aspects and you produce a particular article on work that you've done in the community for publication, if you haven't followed the procedures that normally apply to other scholarship, you won't get it publicized. So right from the beginning, you need to be clear what are your aims and objectives, what methodology you're going to be using, etc. Now, how do we shift this emphasis? Now, my apologies for this, that it's come out like this. But you'll find that when you go and read, and the next slide that I'll give you, you'll find that when you go and do research, the modality of research, when you move it into the community, changes. It becomes community-based research, collaborative research, I'm referring to participatory action, learning, and research, or action research. So the manner of your research changes when you move it off campus. The same with your teaching. When you move your teaching off campus, say, for example, service learning, work integrated learning, the mode changes because you are now involving so-called non-traditional people who originally are not part of the university, in the sense that I'm saying your traditional student is your scholar that leaves high school and they go to university. But once you move out into the community, you're changing your format to be able to accommodate different forms or different clients that are in the community. Now, in those circles that I've put there, which is one is teaching and learning, the other one is research, and the other one is professional discipline-based service provision, because that is one of the big areas. Oh, these things are jumping up here. I'm having to admit people here as I'm presenting. How do we shift our teaching and learning? How do we shift our research when we go off campus? We shift it by, for example, when we do service learning, when we do work integrated learning, when we do clinical practice, when we do discipline-related volunteerism, when we develop customized training programs, when we develop project-based learning, clinical practice, webinars. So you're moving what is available, you're opening it to the public, so you're changing by integrating engagement with other publics other than the students that you're working with. And the way that we interpret it is that how do we move our research? We move it by means of action research, applied research, collaborative research, technology transfer, contract research, evaluation impact studies, problem analysis and solving, commercialization of IP and spin-off companies. This is quite an area that the university is working in specifically through its entities in the engineering and the technology fields. Now, when you have a specific project, you'll find an engagement project will straddle one or two of these areas. It will have a professional discipline-based service component, and it might have a research component. So, for example, you start off, you go into the community, you do some outreach work, you realize that maybe there's an opportunity here to do capacity building. Then you start moving into teaching and learning. So you develop a short learning program. Once you develop the short learning program, and people have done it, you do research and you find out whether this capacity building is assisted. So you'll find any project will straddle these particular engagement categories. And in the case studies that I'll be showing you, I'll give an indication of how it's done. So it engages academics in relevant work. I think what is important, in essence, it's a scholarly agenda that integrates community issues into disciplinary work of academics through engagement. And one thing that we have found at our institution that by means of engagement projects, we have a lot of transdisciplinary work taking place, in the sense that you will have students from maybe 5 or 6 different disciplines working on one project in the community. The benefits of this is that the students learn from each other. Like, say, for example, a social development studies student will find out what a pharmacist does. A pharmacist will find out what a psychologist does, because they are now working together for the first time before they actually qualify to go into their profession. So the projects will show that indication. Now, when we talk about traditional scholarship and the scholarship of engagement, how does it differ? Well, the traditional scholarship breaks new ground in the discipline. With engaged scholarship, it does the same thing, but it has a direct application to broader public issues. It answers significant questions in the discipline, but it also has relevance to the public and the external communities, because you are doing that work in the community. It's reviewed and validated by qualified peers in the discipline. It's reviewed in the same manner and also by members of the community, who will soon let you know that, say, we don't think that what you are doing and what you are studying is of relevance to us, or we think it's of benefit to us. So you'll find that there are these community input that will go into that particular area. And what we are finding now with the establishment of our hubs of conversions, which is another direction the university is moving into, we will not research certain aspects before we've actually set up a hub of convergence around a specific topic involving community members, academics, and professionals before we decide what areas we should be investigating. So we're becoming very much, the research that's being produced is user-inspired research, the direction we're moving towards. And then the other areas is a solid base, theoretical basis, and it has a practical and applied basis. I'm not going to read all of them. You should get the recording of this, and I will make this PowerPoint available. I think the last point there is important: applies the knowledge to address and provide solution to community issues. So that's a type of research that will flow from engaged research, when you're engaging with the community and you're engaging with different publics, other than staying on campus and only engaging with your students. You're engaging with adults off the campus, and you're engaging with different markets, you're engaging with different communities. Then the word innovation, what we found as we're moving in this direction, if you are doing engaged scholarship, you will still produce the conventional scholarly outputs, which are reflected in the dark blue. But you'll also find that flowing from a lot of this, in addition to these outputs, you will also have other outputs. For example, flowing from this will be academic innovative outputs, like, for example, workshops, new courses, new modules, new curricula, short courses and training videos, curatorial and collections that are developed, academic websites and blogs, policy briefs, lessons learned toolkits. I'll give an example of how toolkits that have been developed in primary schools for teachers and pupils to be able to cope with the situation that they are in. And then specific app development. A very good example is with the whole COVID situation that we have in the Eastern Cape. We have a COVID coordinating committee and a COVID working group. And the number of apps that have been developed by master's IT students to be able to assist the Eastern Cape government based on their particular needs, you'll find that people have become very creative, very innovative, responding to what is happening in the community. When we come to documentaries, an example of that, I sent Vunani another publication. It was done by an architecture lecturer about the Khoisan people along the Eastern Cape coast, and looking at their historical sites. And you will find that there was a documentary called The Way of the Water, and it was aired in 17 different countries at the same time during Earth Day. And high quality, and if you go on the architecture website of the university, you'll see the documentaries there. But what is very important is that the publication that I sent was co-produced by the Khoisan chiefs and the lecturer in architecture, and the article was published in an architectural design publication. So it shows what can be done if you just move the way you do things off campus. Now, I think, yeah, it's very important. If you don't enable and if you don't create drivers of engaged scholarship and you don't provide support to academics, it might not happen. They would feel much more comfortable just doing on-campus research, staying in their office and not moving out of the office. Because we all like our comfort, we like our little empires, we don't like change, we're not very flexible as academics. But what we found, what is required for this to happen, is that, again, I want to emphasize, it should be reflected in your mission, vision, your strategic objectives, your plans of the university. Executive and senior management support needs to be there. Your DVC, it needs to be at a very high level, because the DVC, it needs to be one of these key performance areas. And what is also important as far as the Nexus goes, the combination of engagement, research, and innovation, that DVC should also have the innovation office reporting to them. You should have support structures. And I could just mention support structures. You have a centralized engagement office. But that's basically due to do the reporting and keep databases, etc. Because the emphasis should be on everyone engaging. Engagement does not only happen in the engagement office. Remember, it's about how the university teaches and what they teach, how they research and what they research, and how they've shifted that off campus and what they're doing in the community. But also important is the community the committee structures that the university establishes, so that it shows that this is an important function and there's reporting on this, and that there are subcommittees of Senate. Very important is that you need to have a research and engagement committee and faculty research and engagement committee. Institutional engagement forum comprising of everyone in the institution who just wants to come and chat about engagement, chat about ideas, chat about best practice, and then also flowing from that institutional engagement forum, you have a community of practice involving external stakeholders with the university. And I've also mentioned the creation of these hubs of conversions. I want to mention, at one stage, we had an engagement committee and we had a research committee. And then we realized, but the issues we were discussing in both of these committees were more or less the same, and the same people were sitting in this committee. So they just made the decision to put the two together, because you can't, if you think of engagement in an integrated manner, you can't think of research being separate from engagement, because it affects the type of research that you do. So we put those two committees together, and it's actually working very well. Then very important is that it should be included in the recognition and reward criteria. For example, in the KPAs, at our institution, all of the heads of departments, directors, deans, one of the key performance areas is how they're driving engagement in their particular department or in their particular portfolio. Your awards that you have, you give recognition to the engagement project funding. It needs to be funded by the institution, and I'll come back to you now how it's actually how we've actually funded, how we've developed a method of funding engagement, because engagement in most universities is not a council line item, because I think, as most of us know, it's not made available. But if you infuse it, as one of the comments were, into your teaching and learning, then you don't need that additional funding, because the teaching and learning is already funded, the research is already funded. But if it's a special project that you are doing and you need to start off with what do they call it, funds up front, okay, you can't respond to me, but I'll come back to it. And then I think what is important is it should form part of academic promotion criteria. So when you present your teaching and learning portfolio, your research portfolio, you also present an engagement portfolio. and you indicate when you do your teaching portfolio and your research portfolio how you've integrated engagement to teaching and learning and into research. And we have a specific criteria that we look at. Coming back to funding, I head up the engagement office, which at our university is structured very differently to most universities. Part of my structure consists of myself as director, and then I've got a senior manager, engagement, information and development. But then I've also got a unit for service learning and work integrated learning. Got a unit for continuing education, and I have a community development unit. Now, because the unit for continuing education is situated in my office, I was able to negotiate with the university and say, I want 5% of the 15% levy that we generate on short learning programs, because the university takes 15, they put a levy of 15% on all this third stream income that is generated. And then I'm able to have 700,000 to 800,000 Rand a year to be able to fund specific projects, to start off with that initial, and we will fund a project for a period of 3 years to a maximum of 150,000. So you'll find that you have to have those incentives. Otherwise, the academics are a bit hesitant to move off campus if you don't have these enablers at the institution. And then, of course, we have capacity development, which is your engagement focus, writing retreats, and your integration workshops. Further, the enablers go, and I think this is very important when I mentioned about it should be in the key performance areas of academics, it should be part of the promotion criteria. I think what is very important is that point 2, anchoring engagement projects in scholarship equals engagement underpinned or built on the architecture of scholarship equals scholarly outputs, but it leads to buy-in of academic staff. Why does it lead to buy-in? As it is aligned to their norms and values, recognition and reward systems. If they see that they're going to get the same rewards as what they're getting in teaching and learning and research, because they are following a scholarly approach in those areas. So you have to let them understand that this is a scholarly aspect, and you need to, when you do your evaluation, or whether it's a portfolio for promotion or for excellence awards, emphasis is on scholarly criteria. I'm going to move off on that because I think we might run out of time. Very important, and this is very pertinent to my institution. I think what is very important, the traditional academic structures tend to reinforce isolation among academics and external stakeholders. They may prove out to be unworkable in terms of enabling or balancing the nexus between engagement, innovation, teaching and learning research. It may require structural adjustments, and these structural adjustments and shifts have occurred at our university by flattening the hierarchical relationship between academics and external stakeholders. And this is specifically through the formation of entities, industry chairs or other forms of chairs. These entities or these structures are considered transactional spaces, boundary spanners, and they are more inclusive and responsive and allow a two-way flow of information, because you find that traditional academic setup often does not allow a free flow of information between the academic department and the community. Then I've just added additional things on entities. I think very important what we have found at our institution. It's become a major contributor to growing your own timber, because a number of the academics, of the young academics or the students, go and work in these entities. They do their masters, they do their PhDs, and they are kept in the university for much longer. And when positions become open, often priority is given to these particular people who are working in these entities. The funding, you find that within the entities, most of the entities at my institution are self-funded. And I've just listed a few of them there. And the ones in bold are centralized entities. CANRAD stands for Center for Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy. And then I've got one in red there. That is a state-funded institute because it's linked to our Faculty of Maritime Study, Maritime faculty. So you'll find by just looking at the nature, like a Center for Community Technology, Center for Community Schools, Labour and Social Security Law Unit, Center for Law in Action, it gives you an idea that the work the discipline has been taken off campus. Center for Sustainability Research, I will talk to that soon. This just emphasizes that everyone inside the university is responsible for engagement. It happens in departments, but it also happens in the peripheral entities. And in these peripheral entities, you find that you have a lot of transdisciplinary research taking place and transdisciplinary teaching. And then you also have the engagement office situated there. Now I'm going to go very quickly, but it's going to be visual, so I can just flip through it. The first case study which I want to present to you is called the DASH project, which became the Kazubuntu project, and it's in partnership with Basel University. It's a research project. It's been running for 6 years. It's a good example of balancing the nexus, and it's transdisciplinary. It's a study on how nutrition, exercise, and parasitic infestation, what effect it has on the education of young learners. On this project, we have nursing students, we have dietetics, education, environmental health, and human movement sciences students. And it involves all 4 categories of our conceptual framework. The scholarly outputs that have flowed from this so far are a number of publications, a number of technical reports, toolkits, documentaries, videos, etc. So I'm going to go to that slide if I can find it. And I'm just going to see if we can run this. Now I'm trying to find how do I go to my other slides. How do I get to this thing again now? Here we are. Right, the next project that I'd like to say, to mention as well, where they've actually combined innovation, teaching and learning, research, professional discipline-based service provision, is where an architecture academics have moved their second year teaching design subject or module off campus, where every year the second year architectural students build one or other structure for the community. And this particular design that you see there at the moment are the concept designs that come up, and then what they do, they decide amongst themselves which is the best, then all the students will work on that particular project. So what they did, the creche was built at the university, and the major advantage of a project of this nature, you have building students, you have, yeah?
Prof, I think you need to stop this, your slides, and then put up the one that you are talking about. I think we are seeing your slides still and not the architecture case study. Yeah.
So
Stop.
Are you not seeing the architects now? Why? What?
Stop the slide presentation from your the one that you were using, and then put up the. I'm correct, colleagues, that we are seeing the slides, right?
Yes, Prof.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see that slide?
Mm.
Can you see the architecture slide?
No, not yet.
You must stop sharing the present slide. If you look to the other.
To the arrow, it's if you click on that, it's actually going to say stop stop sharing or stop sharing presentation or content.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and then share again.
Yes, but share on this you will have to highlight the one that you would like to share, which should be in the bottom bar of your screen once you've stopped sharing, if you have chosen your whole desktop.
Yeah. Still not there.
Yeah. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Then reshare. But when you now reshare, just share the entire desktop, so that when you go, or you can either go to the entire desktop or pick the presentation that you want. To make it easy for you to switch, share your entire desktop. So stop sharing, then share again your screen, but this time opt for the entire desktop.
No, I think I've lost it now. Dear. Let's just try. Stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to share.
Share again.
Can you see that? Yes, this is a slideshow from the previous.
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, I'm going to go, this particular slide, this one about the creche, it was a transdisciplinary, it involved architecture, quantity surveying, environmental health, etc. The creche was built on the campus, and then it was moved to the Walmer Township, and it was constructed in that particular, so this is very much, this architectural academic won the Engagement and Innovation Award for leading this particular project. And if you go on the architecture website, as I mentioned, they do a project in the community every year, and you can see the projects that they've done in the past, the structures that they've built. And that is an example of where it is. So I'm just going to go through. The other project that I want to mention is our Zanapelo health truck. It's an innovative off-campus engaged teaching platform. It involves nursing, social development, psychology, pharmacy, dietetics, and human movement sciences. They go into the community, they do research, they provide services, and various reports are written in particular areas. And the big advantage of this is that the students learn from each other or what their other professions are about. So this has also proved very successful with our students in the community, and we work with specific communities. So it's not just, it's a sustainable thing that carries on year after year. I'm going to jump because I think I'm going to go one more, which I think is quite an interesting one. It's the Africa Earth Observation Network, Earth Stewardship Through Science. It's one of our entities. It's an institutional entity, and they did the Karoo Shale Gas and Aeon Earth Stewardship projects. It was transdisciplinary, had 30 postgraduate students working on it, and it involved both the sciences, arts, and health. The work that they did was groundwater monitoring. It could indicate surface critical. These studies had to be done before fracking actually started, and it was funded by a number of agencies, of which the Eastern Cape government was a very big one. The particular model that they used was a citizen science model, where they actually trained the community to do a lot of the readings and to send through a lot of the readings of, for example, groundwater through to the university. But before that could happen, a number of the community members had to come to the university for a 3-week training period. And the process that they had to do to be able to roll out this project, they had to work with farmers, local municipalities, had to have meetings, and the model that they used was by means of the citizen science project. And what does that involve? There are various steps to it, and that is how they equip the students. And because of time, I'm not going to go through every step. And what we found is,
Sorry to interject. It looks like colleagues are interested in your these cases, and they're asking that you actually project the slides on a slideshow, and okay, they would rather mix. I mean, they would rather shorten the interactive session. But
okay, are you there now? Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is the model that they used working in the Karoo. It was consultation, collaboration, and then the community taking ownership and doing some of the work with the university. And you'll find it's a lot about building relationships, working with the community. This is just some of the shots about enriching research, enriching teaching through engagement, and the particular engagement project. So what I've said is about moving your teaching and moving your research off campus, and it involved a number of local shale gas community roundtables and presentations by both academics and the community, as you can see in the top left and right sections of the slide. And also then promoting science through engaging youth on the shale gas in the Karoo. And then a number of the findings that came from this, these are now the scholarly outputs that go with it, were presented at various conferences which could be presented, because of course a lot of the stuff was confidential, the findings of these studies that were done. And then what happened, the oil prices went haywire, and shale gas mining came to an end or has been delayed. Now, there have been a number of journal articles and papers that had flowed from this particular project, and this particular entity, Aeon, is a transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary project, and you find that students from all disciplines can actually do their masters in this particular entity. These are the partners that worked on this particular, who they had to partner with to be able to do this particular project. And you'll notice there's one there called Innoventon. That's one of our institutes, very strong as far as innovation goes in the chemical field, and they were also collaborating on this particular project. Now, what are the ongoing interventions? Inclusion and participation of community in health and baseline studies, understanding how to adapt to community contribution into science and data, vice versa. So this is the learning from the community, the co-creation of knowledge. Continuous process of community buy-in, citizen training, deployment and support, and then also to create these particular databases of the whole Karoo, and then reporting, technical and publishing. The second one that I want to refer to is stakeholder engagement in the garden route. This is done by one of our units, which is the sustainability research unit, also involving a great deal of community input and community partnerships. And they work with a specific model: consultation, participation, practical application, education, and then they research it. And you will find they have a lot of these roundtables working with the community on specific aspects and making them part of the research project. The partners in that was all they've just reflected there, who is working with the university in those particular areas in the Southern Cape. Just to give you some background, we have one of our campuses at George, situated in the forests of the George, just above the wilderness area, and that's where that particular unit is situated. You'll find that they use different methods called silo effect, barriers and bridges to community participation, engage research for socio-ecological complexity. It's different approaches that they use, and you'll find that they involve the community in all these particular aspects, and they also learn from the community what's worked and what hasn't worked. The work that they've done in the last 2 years, 18 participatory matching workshops with communities in the wilderness catchment area. It's all listed there. I'm not going to go through it, but it does show you that when you move off campus, you can make your research and your teaching so much more interesting, but you can also get buy-in from the community and the community feeling part of this whole process. Engagement through teaching and learning. What else do they do as well? The different approaches: take collective responsibility for each other's learning through group learning, support networks, and providing moral and material support. And those are some of the activities that they have. And then through research, this particular unit, the last 2 years, they've been the lead principal investigator, International Endowment Forum on Coastal Vulnerability, because we're looking at that particular area. They got a community engagement grant, and then a 3-year contract from the Department of Environment Affairs, working on this particular project. CSRR is working with them. And then these are just some of the publications that have flowed from it. There's an indication. And then I've now moved off the Southern Cape. But if you have a very good look at this photo, they are also working with the House of Judah. The House of Judah is a group of Rastafarians living just above Knysna as you come into Knysna on the right-hand side, and they're assisting them with their particular environment, because actually they are very environment conscious, and what they found, they also have learned, the students and the university has learned from the indigenous knowledge systems of these people who have lived in that area for a very long time. And then the beneficiaries, the students, a lot of these students are master's students. And the publications that have flowed, peer-reviewed journals on this project, 26 international conferences. It just gives an idea of the outputs that have come from that particular project. Then I'm going to go one now, which is technology, and it's linked to the automotive industry in Port Elizabeth, because as I mentioned before, a lot I've tried to concentrate on case studies which I thought would be of interest to you, and looking at the combination and the mixture of universities that are represented. but you'll find that the university has very close links to the automotive and automotive component industry in Port Elizabeth. And we have a institute called ENSA, very much involved with engineering innovation and coming up with solutions. And they've been running for 25 years, longer than, because it used to be an old institute within the old Port Elizabeth Technikon. And they are focusing very much on the products and services are listed there. And you'll find that this particular entity, they're also working with e-mobility. They're looking at residual stresses in pipes, and they're looking at one of their major innovations is friction stir welding, which is their IP, and they've got recognition from the American Institute of Engineers, and once you get that accreditation, you can actually take this IP anywhere in the world. Now, what this unit is able to do is to go to the Transnet and Sasol pipelines and do residual stress testing on those pipelines without actually shutting the pipelines off. They take out little plugs and they can seal the plug, and they bring the plug back to the university. They do the testing and they can write reports on what's happening. They're also working with Eskom in repairing the big turbines without having to take the turbines apart with the machinery that they developed to put it onto those particular turbines. They have 3 trucks that run all over the country doing various work with SMEs, etc. Now this, and then also, as I mentioned, we have e-mobility as well. That is research in batteries for the automotive industry. This is the structure of ENSA. And there's only one person that is on the university that is permanently employed. That is the director of that particular ENSA. But they have a number of postgraduate students working there, but also a large number of people on 3-year to 5-year contracts, which are rolling. The annual turnover of this particular entity, because I sit on their board, is between 60 and 70 million a year. So they are able to cover their salaries, and they normally have about a 5-year reserve in place. COVID has affected them, but they are actually very agile and very flexible, and they've been able to carry on. I can just mention when we had the fees must fall protests on the campus, this particular unit was given permission by the student bodies to keep on running because of the work that they were doing for industries and SMEs in Port Elizabeth. So they went throughout the shutdown of the university. But it gives you an idea of the level of expertise that is in this particular entity. It's been built up over a 25-year period. And there are some people that have been there on 5-year rolling contracts for about 20 years. We are able to keep the expertise because they are paid the same salaries as what a qualified high-level engineer would be paid in industry. Just some of the large-scale friction welding work that they've done. They did the longest friction stir weld in Africa, and they've also, as I mentioned, they've got the biggest friction stir welding facility in the Southern Hemisphere in that particular unit. And then they are moving into the rural areas as well with this twirly lights, basically working on alternative energy. And then this is an indication of the technologies that they've developed. And I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to, and then they also are busy with looking at different aircraft, developing aircraft wings on campus. And these are the different people that they are working with. I'm going to stop there, and let me just, I think if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Thank you, Prof. Without any further ado, we're only getting to our last 15 minutes, and I would ask Professor Mahlomangulu to lead the discussion session. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bonani and Prof. Lange. This really has been a very, very interesting presentation and enlightener. So I will not waste time. I'll come at the end. Let me allow the colleagues to ask questions at this stage because of the limited time available. I'll talk just for a second or so towards the end before Professor Francis closes. I'm actually noting a very lively conversation on the chat where colleagues are engaging with one another around the issues that Professor Lange raised in his presentation. Now is the floor, ladies and gentlemen, to ask the question directly to Prof. And Prof, I'll step out of the conversation for a few minutes to allow you to respond directly to the questions as they are raised. And then I will conclude in a minute after before Professor Francis closes the event. Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions at this stage?
Prof, I noted Darlington's hand was up earlier on, and of course, Prof. Mandela's hand is up as well.
All right, Prof, please field your question. Prof. Lange is waiting.
Good afternoon, colleagues. This is Professor Nkonge Mandleni, Mangosuthu University of Technology. Prof. Lange, thank you so much for such an informative and lively discussion. We've learned a lot. As the University of Technology that is based in KZN, we have just, we are evolving actually from doing community engagement as purely outreach, and we're trying now under the new strategy 2020 to 2025 to integrate our community engagement into the core business with the teaching and learning and research. And therefore, Prof, we will be under your sleeves, and as we learn along and helping the colleagues to get to understand the integration of community engagement into teaching and learning. Basically, I am managing an office that is responsible for coordination of community engagement for the university. One last question, in fact, one question that I asked in the chat is how has the university managed to make community engagement projects multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary, because that is where we have a challenge currently in the university.
You'll find where they are transdisciplinary, it's normally a project that is in a specific faculty, for example, either in health or in science. If one, for example, takes the DASH or Kazibuntu project, all those people there, except for education students, are from the health faculty. And when the research project starts, the project leader will advertise and say who wants to come and do their work integrated learning or service learning as part of this particular project, and then they will get pulled in. So that is a faculty-based project that is running. If you go to Aon, which is very much, it has arts, it has engineering, it has science, it has humanities, you'll find there they will also advertise a particular project and students are able to apply, but it needs to fit in with their academic studies, either whether they are doing work integrated learning or it's part of a research project, if they're busy with a master's or busy with honors, and it's a project that goes with it. Included there in that particular project were anthropology students as well. You'll find that it's just starting to, as the projects start running, we have I didn't mention the word champions. You have academics in institution who are engagement champions, and they create so much enthusiasm, and they are able to pull the students along with them into these particular projects. And I think it's very important. These champions mainly sit in the entities. I could just quickly also mention, when you mentioned that you're only one pulling it together, at my institution, the emphasis is everyone engages, and my office has a coordinator function. And then also part of my function is that if we sign an MOU to do particular work with a particular body, then it's also the function for me to facilitate and coordinate and to pull people into that particular project to work on that particular project through a service level agreement. So it is formalized as such.
Thanks, Prof. Any other comment, colleagues?
Darlington, are you still coming up with it? Yes.
Yes, I'm partly covered by Prof. Mandela's comment, because my issue was how do you as NMU manage interdisciplinary community engagements? I'll give a specific example. I am from a mathematics department background, and now trying to do the kind of work that you are doing, you have to go under another department to have the level of impact that you were just presenting here. So my question was, how can you advise on how to start up those kind of interdisciplinary projects?
Yeah, I think I mentioned in my presentation the normal disciplinary department is not very much geared towards bringing other people into that particular discipline, and the entities are very well suited to do this because the entities don't represent one specific discipline. For example, if I take the Sustainability Research Unit, they might represent zoology and botany and the natural sciences, but they also bring in marketing students and they bring in different students. So you find that we were able to do this by this infrastructure that's been developed by means of entities. I cannot emphasize more the importance of entities in the university. I will make the bold statement that 95% of our research, innovation and engagement goes through our entities, and they do keep on pulling more and more people into these entities on projects, because you are able to be much more successful by working as a team than trying to do it yourself, because often these entities also have the infrastructure to support you in what you want to do.
Thank you very much, Prof. Any other comment? I can see some comment on the chat from Northwest University, Andrew Robinson, Dr. Dlavani. Anything that we'd want to raise at this stage before we close?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I've raised my hand, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to proceed.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to find out from Professor De Lange, in your experience, how does interdisciplinarity affect positively or negatively the NRF rating?
Look, interdisciplinarity, the university is pushing it very hard, but I think where you're heading towards is that in which discipline do you publish? And I think you normally find that the project leader working on a particular project will have maybe a certain emphasis on a particular work, even though it's a number of disciplines working on it. But the issue that you raise is an issue, because there are not many interdisciplinary projects as such, but you can publish that particular article or the work that you've done, you can publish it in a journal that is linked to engagement, and they will publish it for you. So I think there are issues around, but I think the university is pushing very much for transdisciplinary work, and especially we've just actually entered in the sustainable development rating system for the first year this year, and we were actually surprised at how well we did as a first up, because there were certain categories in which we actually ranked number one. Because often that you you are not aware that you're actually doing so well in a particular area until you actually enter the sustainability rating scales. And I think what is important with the sustainability rating scale is that's also transdisciplinary work. It's a number of different people working in one of the sustainable development goals, but it's a number of disciplines. But coming back to your question, the transdisciplinarity is an issue, but if it's engagement work, it's not a major issue getting that work published from a lot of disciplines if you put it in a engagement-related journal as such.
All right, Prof. Thank you very much. It looks like you really have responded to all the questions that colleagues had, and we are like 5 minutes before the end of the session. From my side, as I should really have responded, but I think my colleagues had more incisive questions that really enabled us to understand your presentation even more. I think from my perspective, there's only one point that I wish to highlight, that you have enabled us through your very clear presentation what it means for a university coming to its fullness by responding to needs in its community. That university actually is just a mere instance of a social arrangement. It cannot function alone, but it will come to its fullness when it's fully integrated with the community. Thank you very much, Prof. And we are definitely going to be inviting you again. You can see that our group has grown. We started from small beginning. Currently, we are over 200. And I'm sure through presentations, lively presentations that are informed, such as yours, we are going to grow from strength to strength. Thank you very much.
Can I just add, I think it would be good if the participants go and have a look at that, the university and the city article, because it does explain a lot of what I have been trying to convey. And I think it's important that we still emphasize that we all approach it differently. And the nature of our institution as a comprehensive, this is why we've gone this way. You've got to look at your strengths and then move in that particular area. You might find I was fortunate, and I didn't mention it. This institution was very, very fortunate, and the merger was a major contributor towards the success of its engagement activity and where we've gone with engagement, because we were able to start from anew. We didn't have to break down any empires or structures that people were holding on, because when we merged, we had to come up with new structures, we had to come up with new policies, we had to come up with new philosophies, and we were able to get the buy-in, and we were able to push those policies through and be a different university, because our first vice chancellor, who has now passed away, Dr. Ralph Stumpf, when he was at UPE, he originally said, before we merge, University of Port Elizabeth can no longer be an island, it needs to be an engaged institution. Then he merged the institution, and that idea of engagement went through into the new institution. Then he said this will be a new generation engaged institution. Then Derek Schwartz came in, and he said that this university will develop a social contract with the surrounding communities. We now have Professor Mutwa, who has the same thing, which her emphasis being on social justice and the values of Nelson Mandela. So we've changed as we've gone along, and we are going to keep on changing. I was very fortunate, I was involved in drafting most of the policies that are linked to engagement and to creating the structure for engagement. I must say, I've been very fortunate as a person working at this university, where I've been at this institution for 35 years. I'll be leaving at the end of this year, so my post is going to be advertised in the next month or two, and the next person that comes in, and I believe the DVC engagement and transformation, he's got his ideas as well as far as engagement goes. That is Professor Keert, who is very much of a humanities person and a transformation specialist. So you find that the way we're doing the engagement, it might just morph in another direction as well. But we don't prescribe how you should be engaging as long as you're contributing and you're making a difference to society. Thank you.
At this point, colleagues, can I ask Professor Francis to just give us the closing remarks? Thanks, colleagues. I may not have time to get back to you again, but thanks. Prof. Francis.
Chair, thank you so much, and good evening, colleagues. Mine is a very simple task, I would really want to echo, the fact that we really need to thank you so much, Professor Lange, for, coming in and giving such an illuminating presentation, which was so powerful. You managed actually to bring together more than 121 people today.
Yeah, I'm very impressed on a Friday afternoon.
Yes. And I think what is also very crucial is to note that I think this is a very unique platform where we are managing to really destroy the walls around so many universities. Because when I was counting, looking at the people that I know here, I counted up to 7 universities represented here. For us at the university, I think what is also very crucial is that we had one of our deputy vice chancellors as part of this platform. Now, I also want to recognize the work that Ms. Nemadods, we don't normally recognize the work that some people behind the scenes do to create platforms like this for us to enjoy, all the delights that you brought to us. Thank you very much for really giving us a number of ingredients for an engaged campus, which I think, again, for us, as a University of Venda, this is very crucial because this is our first year of implementing our new strategic plan, which places engaged scholarship right at the center of what we do. So I think this presentation is actually so useful for us as a university to take what we learned out of this and start building, I think a very strong structure that takes us forward, as an institution. Let me also recognize Professor Mahloma and also Professor Nishandama for presiding over what was happening. The fact that we've presented something which is so rich and which raises so many questions, could not have come at a more opportune time than now when we are going into a long weekend. So we hope that, all the material that we've shared with us, we have ample time over the long weekend to digest and start deciding how we can use that material to develop ourselves and also our own universities. Thank you so much. And let me wish you all the best as you enjoy the long weekend. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much, Prof. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye, Prof. Bye, Prof. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Sweet mood.
Thank you. Bye.